Do you ever feel like your quiet nature makes people think there's nothing going on inside your mind? Like, because you don't speak up first, they assume you have nothing to say? I've been there. For the longest time, I felt invisible. After every group discussion or team meeting, I would walk away wondering, did anyone even notice I was there? It's not that I didn't have thoughts, I had so many. Deep ones, creative ones, but they were all stuck inside, because I didn't feel confident sharing them out loud. I thought being introverted meant being less valuable, less interesting, less worthy of being heard. But then something changed. I came across a book, Quiet by Susan Cain, and it was like someone switched on a light in a dark room. She explained that introverts aren't broken or shy by default. We're just wired differently. And that difference, it's powerful. Turns out being quiet is not a weakness, it's a strength. There's so much power in observing, rather than interrupting. In thinking before speaking. In going deep instead of staying on the surface. But no one tells you that growing up. Society celebrates the loudest voice in the room, the fast talkers, the natural performers. But what about the deep thinkers? The quiet creators? The steady listeners? That's where books made all the difference for me. They didn't just tell me I was okay, they gave me tools. Tools to stop apologizing for who I am. Tools to turn my quiet into clarity, calm, and even quiet leadership. In this video, I want to share with you 10 life-changing books that helped me accept myself, understand my strengths, and actually use my introversion in a world that often misunderstands it. And no, I'm not saying you need to be someone else. In fact, the whole point is the opposite. To stop faking energy you don't feel and start growing from where you actually are. Whether you're an introvert, a highly sensitive person, or just someone who feels out of place in loud, crowded rooms, you're not alone. These books are here for you like they were for me. So stay with me. You might just discover that your quiet nature is the very thing that makes you powerful. Let's dive into these books that can help you own your voice without ever having to raise it. And that brings us to the big question. Why is being quiet actually a superpower? Let's talk about it. When you're quiet, you feel things on a deeper level. You notice the small stuff, like how someone's voice slightly changes when they're uncomfortable, or how a friend says they're fine, but their eyes say otherwise. That's not just being observant. That's emotional intelligence. And here's the thing. Science backs this up. Research shows introverts often score higher in areas like empathy, reflection, and focus. They're not trying to speak just to fill silence. They're thinking, processing, and when they do speak, it often carries more weight. Think about it. Have you ever been in a conversation where you didn't say much, but you walked away understanding more than the people who did all the talking? That's your quiet strength at work. I used to think my silence made me invisible, but now I know. It's what gives me the ability to listen deeply, to connect in a way that's real, not just surface level. While the world is racing to respond, introverts are gathering insight, and that's powerful. Take leadership, for example. The world often imagines leaders as bold, loud, and commanding. But many of the most respected leaders, like Rosa Parks, Barack Obama, and Warren Buffett, are introverts. They lead with calm, with presence, with clarity. The truth is, introverts don't need to be loud to be heard. They just need to own their voice and find the right way to share it. That's where these books come in. Each one of them helped me shift the story I told myself. From I need to speak more to matter to I just need to speak authentically and with intention. You don't have to be the center of attention to make a difference. You just need to understand and value the way you show up in the world. So before we jump into the book list, here's a question to think about. What if your quiet was never a flaw, but the very thing that makes you powerful? And the first book that truly changed how I saw my quiet nature is Quiet by Susan Cain. If you've ever felt like being quiet made you less, this book will flip that thought completely. Susan Cain, the author, was once just like many of us, shy, soft-spoken, and always wondering if her voice even mattered. But here's the twist. She went on to give a TED Talk that's been viewed over 40 million times. And all she did was tell the world that introverts have value, that we don't need to shout to be heard. Reading Quiet felt like someone had written a book about me. I suddenly understood why crowded events drain me, why I need time alone to recharge, and why deep, one-on-one conversations feel more real than group chatter. One story from my own life. I used to sit through work meetings completely silent. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was thinking, analyzing, waiting for the right time to speak. One day, I finally shared a short idea at the end of a long meeting. Just a sentence. That sentence, it sparked a whole project. People didn't remember the hour of talking, they remembered that one thought. That's when I realized, your silence builds power. Your words land stronger because they come from stillness. This book showed me that the world needs both energy and reflection. Both speaking and listening. It's not about changing who you are, it's about understanding your wiring and playing to your strengths. Susan shares powerful stories about introverted leaders, thinkers, creators like Rosa Parks, Albert Einstein and Steve Wozniak, who changed the world not by being loud, but by being true to themselves. And here's something to try. Next time you're in a group and you feel yourself holding back, choose one moment. Speak once, just once. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, just to show yourself that your voice belongs. And afterward, ask yourself, what did I notice by listening first? You'll be surprised how much more you saw by being quiet and how powerful your one sentence can be. Quiet taught me that introversion is not a weakness, it's a different kind of strength. And when you understand it, you stop trying to fit in and start standing out quietly, confidently. And after quiet, Susan Cain gave us another gift, a book called Bittersweet. If quiet helped us embrace our stillness, Bittersweet helps us honor our emotions, especially the ones that don't fit neatly into happy or sad. You know that strange aching feeling you get when an old song plays? Or when you think of someone you've lost, and somehow it hurts and comforts you at the same time? That's the bittersweet feeling. And Susan Cain says that for many introverts, this emotional depth isn't a flaw. It's actually where a lot of our creativity, compassion, and meaning comes from. I remember one night, it was 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I was missing someone I had lost years ago. I felt this deep sadness, but also a strange peace. So I opened my notebook and wrote a small poem. Nothing fancy, just raw emotion. The next day, I read it back and felt lighter. That poem didn't change the world, but it changed me. That's the power of leaning into your bittersweet emotions, instead of pushing them away. Susan talks about how our culture often avoids sadness. We're told to stay positive, to move on. But for introverts, who naturally reflect more deeply, emotions like longing, nostalgia, or quiet sorrow can actually help us process life, create art, and connect with others in a deeper way. So here's a gentle challenge. This week, write down one bittersweet memory. It doesn't have to be a full story, even just a few lines about a moment, a song, a person, a goodbye. Let yourself feel it. Don't rush it. Because those feelings, they're not signs of weakness. They're signs that you've lived, you've loved, you've felt deeply. Ask yourself, when did sadness ever bring me clarity? You'll likely find that some of your biggest life lessons came through quiet tears, not loud applause. Bittersweet reminds us that beauty isn't always bright. Sometimes, it's found in the cracks. And for introverts, that kind of beauty, soft, honest, emotional, is where we shine. After discovering how bittersweet emotions can be a source of depth and creativity, I realized something else. I needed to protect the space where those emotions could breathe. And that's when I found Introvert Power by Laurie Helgo. This book is a quiet revolution. It tells us, you don't need to fix your introversion, you need to honor it. One of the most freeing things I read was this: solitude is not the absence of energy, but the source of it. That hit home for me. Back then I worked in a busy office. People chatted during breaks, gathered in the cafeteria, made small talk. For a while, I forced myself to join in. But honestly, I felt drained. Not because I didn't like my co-workers, but because I needed quiet to recharge. One day, I grabbed my book and quietly slipped into the stairwell. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I wasn't being antisocial. I was breathing again. That tiny act, hiding with a book, gave me the clarity to face the rest of the day. This book gave me permission to carve out those moments. It said, you don't need to show up all the time to be valuable. Your inner world matters just as much. Laurie Helgo also shares that introverts often feel pressure to be on all the time at work, with family, even online. But the truth is, introverts thrive in smaller doses. A little solitude isn't selfish. It's survival. It's where ideas grow, where emotions settle, where you come back to yourself. So here's a simple challenge for this week. Find your recharge zone. It could be a stairwell, a parked car, your room with the door shut, even a quick walk to the corner store. Spend 5 minutes there, no phone, no noise, just you. Ask yourself, when did a moment alone make my day better? You'll probably remember a walk, a bath, a pause, not the loudest part of the day, but the most peaceful. Introvert Power reminds us that stillness is not a lack of life, it's a return to it. After learning to protect my quiet spaces with Introvert Power, the next shift was realizing I could still lead without changing who I was. That's exactly what I found in Quiet Influence by Jennifer Kahnweiler. This book showed me that introverts don't lead with volume, they lead with clarity, preparation, and thoughtfulness. I used to believe leadership was for loud voices, quick talkers, and people who loved the spotlight. I thought, that's just not me. But then I noticed something. In every meeting, there was one coworker who barely spoke, yet when she did, people listened deeply. I once asked her how she did it. She said, I just prepare 3 questions before every meeting. That's it. Simple, intentional. Turns out, that's a superpower. And quiet influence explains it beautifully. Introverts shine when they prepare, observe, and ask meaningful questions. The book lays out 6 strengths of quiet influencers. 1. Thoughtful preparation. 2. Listening deeply. 3. Calm presence. 4. Writing to connect. 5. Thoughtful use of social media. 6. Leading by example, not ego. That first one, preparation, hit home. It's not about having the loudest opinion. It's about asking the right question at the right time. So I tried it. Before my next team meeting, I wrote down one question in my notebook. Just one. I didn't plan to speak for long. I just wanted to ask something real. Something that showed I cared. When the moment came, I asked it. And to my surprise, people paused, looked up, and the conversation shifted. I didn't have to say much. I had just asked a good question, and that was enough. Here's a tiny action for you this week. Before your next conversation, class, or meeting, write down one question you want to ask. Make it thoughtful. Make it curious. That's how introverts lead. And ask yourself this. What question would make me a valued voice in this room? You don't need to dominate the room to be respected. You just need to bring something meaningful to it. Quiet influence is proof that introverts lead differently. And that's exactly what makes us powerful. After learning to show up quietly but powerfully with quiet influence, I realized something else. Even the most thoughtful introvert can't hear their own thoughts if their world is too loud. That's where Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport changed everything for me. This book is a wake-up call in the best way. It says, your mind is not designed to handle endless pings, likes, and scrolls. And for introverts who already need space to recharge, this constant digital noise is exhausting. I didn't even notice it at first. I'd check Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, emails on repeat. It felt normal, but I was always tired, foggy, restless. Then I read this book, and Cal Newport said something simple that hit me hard. Clarity comes from intentional time, not from information overload. So I tried one tiny experiment. I muted all social media apps on my phone for just 1 week. No deleting, just silence. At first, it was weird. I felt a little disconnected, even nervous. But then something shifted. I started going on morning walks with no music. I actually noticed the sky, the breeze, birdsong. I even had a real conversation with a neighbor I'd usually just nod at. By the 3rd day, I felt more present, more me. That's what digital minimalism offers. Not rules, but freedom. Freedom from being available all the time. Freedom to say, I don't need to be online 24/7 to feel connected. Cal suggests a digital declutter, where you strip away non-essential tech for 30 days and slowly reintroduce only what truly adds value to your life. But you don't have to go that far. Start small. Mute one non-essential app for 24 hours this week. That's it. Just one. No alerts. No pressure. Just see how your mind feels. And then ask yourself, how much calmer could my mind be if it didn't jump at every notification? For me, silence isn't empty anymore. It's peaceful. It's powerful. And digital minimalism taught me how to reclaim it. After digital minimalism helped me quiet the noise around me, I started to notice something deeper inside the quiet feelings I used to hide. That's when I picked up The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, and it completely changed how I saw myself. This book is all about embracing who you really are, not who the world expects you to be. And if you're an introvert, you've probably felt that pressure to be more talkative, more outgoing, more fun. But Brené's message is simple and powerful. Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we'll ever do. For a long time, I thought being quiet meant I was broken or boring. I avoided eye contact. I faked smiles. But inside, I was carrying anxiety, self-doubt, and this heavy belief that if I spoke my truth, no one would get it. Then I read a chapter about vulnerability, and it stopped me cold. She said, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. So the next day at work, during a team check-in, I said something small. I've been quiet lately because I've been feeling a little overwhelmed. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't cry. I just shared that tiny piece. And guess what? One of my coworkers looked at me and said, "Me too." That 2-word reply? It felt like a hug for my nervous heart. It reminded me that introverts are not alone. We just rarely show our inner world. This book taught me that quiet honesty builds the strongest bridges. You don't have to overshare. You don't have to be loud. You just have to be real. So try this. In your next conversation, say one true sentence. It could be, I'm feeling nervous today. Or, I get anxious in big groups. Or even just, I've been overthinking things lately. You'll be amazed at how people respond, often with relief, connection, or even admiration. And ask yourself, what quiet honesty could connect me with someone today? The truth is, people feel drawn to genuine souls, not perfect ones. And once you begin owning your story, just like Brené Brown teaches, you'll discover that your silence isn't a wall, it's a doorway. After Brené Brown helped me embrace vulnerability and quiet honesty, I started noticing something else. There are moments when being quiet doesn't feel awkward, it feels perfect. That deep, peaceful feeling when you're so into something that the rest of the world disappears. That's called flow, and it's beautifully explained in Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is when your mind, body and soul are completely in sync, fully present, fully engaged. It's not about being loud or competitive. It's about being immersed. For introverts, this is our happy place. I first truly experienced flow while playing piano late one night. I wasn't thinking about whether I sounded good or who might be listening. I wasn't even thinking at all. I was just playing. I lost track of time. When I looked up, an hour had passed like a minute. It was pure wordless joy. That's what this book talks about. Mihaly, don't worry, no one says his last name right, spent years studying artists, athletes and everyday people. He found that the happiest people aren't the richest or the loudest, they're the ones who regularly experience flow. And for many introverts, flow is where we shine. It could be writing, gardening, drawing, coding, solving puzzles, crafting anything that lights up your mind and calms your body. The key is this: no distractions, just enough challenge to keep you focused, and doing something you genuinely enjoy. So here's a tiny challenge for this week. Pick one activity you love. Maybe it's sketching, reading, painting miniatures, even organizing your bookshelves. Then give it 30 minutes. No phone, no noise, just you and that thing. It might feel weird at first, but stay with it. Flow creeps in quietly, and once it does, it feels like coming home. Ask yourself, when was the last time I forgot about time because I was lost in something I loved? That moment? That's your mind at its most powerful. And here's the beauty. You don't have to prove anything. You don't need applause. In flow, you're not performing. You're simply being. This book reminded me that introverts aren't quiet because they lack energy. We're quiet because we save our energy for moments that truly matter. After discovering the magic of Flow with Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I began to understand something deeper. My sensitivity wasn't something to get over, it was something to lean into. That's exactly what The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron teaches. This book opened my eyes to the idea that sensitivity is not weakness, it's wisdom in disguise. If you've ever been told you're too sensitive, this book is your quiet revolution. Dr. Elaine Aron shows that about 15 to 20% of people are highly sensitive, meaning they process everything, thoughts, emotions, environments, more deeply than others. For introverts, that deep processing often looks like overthinking. But what if it's actually a strength? Here's a true story. A friend of mine works in client services. She used to feel drained after meetings. Not just because of the talking, but because she noticed everything. People's micro-expressions, when they shifted in their seat, if someone's voice cracked. She thought she was weird for being so affected. Then she read this book and realized it wasn't weird. It was her gift. She began using those quiet observations to improve her work. She could sense when a client wasn't really happy, even when they said they were. And she made small adjustments. People began to trust her more because they felt understood, even if they couldn't explain why. That's the power of being highly sensitive. You notice what others don't. You feel what others ignore. And when used with care, it becomes your superpower. So here's a gentle challenge for today. Pay attention to one small detail. It could be the scent of your tea, the warmth of sunlight, a tone in someone's voice. Then write it down. One line. No judgment. Why? Because noticing is honoring. When you take note of the small things, you're telling yourself, I see, I feel, and that matters. Ask yourself, what tiny detail spoke to me today? Maybe it was a color, a laugh, a line from a song. That moment is a mirror. It shows how richly you experience the world. This book reminded me that feeling deeply doesn't make life harder. It makes it fuller. And as you'll see in the next book, learning to protect that sensitive energy is the key to thriving, not just surviving as an introvert. After learning to notice and honor the details with the highly sensitive person, I realized something else. Being sensitive also means protecting your energy. That's where Essentialism by Greg McKeown comes in, a book that felt like a deep breath for my introverted soul. Essentialism isn't just about doing less. It's about doing only what matters most. It taught me that saying yes to everything is silently saying no to yourself. For a long time, I said yes, out of guilt. Helping out at events, staying on calls too long, agreeing to weekend plans I didn't even want. I thought being helpful made me kind. But often, it just made me exhausted. Then I read this line in Essentialism. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. That hit hard. So I did one small thing. I said no to a volunteer gig I'd been part of for years. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't essential anymore. I was doing it out of habit, not passion. And the moment I stepped away, I found space I didn't realize I needed. With that space, I finally sat down and wrote. Not for work, not for a deadline, just for me. I reconnected with a part of myself I'd ignored for years. And that happened because I made room for it. Introverts especially need this. We recharge in solitude. But when our calendar is full, our mind never rests. Essentialism reminded me that quiet is sacred, and we have to protect it. So here's your try it now moment. Say no to one non-essential thing today. Maybe it's a group chat that drains you. Maybe it's a scrolling late at night. Maybe it's a project you feel obligated to, but no longer care about. And ask yourself, what do I need to let go of to give more to what truly matters? It's not selfish, it's essential. Because when you clear away the noise, you create room for your deepest joys to come alive. And when you protect that space, when you guard your quiet, you're not hiding. You're honoring who you are. After letting go of the non-essential with essentialism, something beautiful happens. You start to rediscover yourself. And that's where Solitude, In Pursuit of a Singular Life in a Crowded World by Michael Harris comes in. This book helped me understand something I never fully realized. Solitude is not loneliness. It's a kind of power. In today's world, we're constantly connected. Notifications, group chats, scrolling feeds, background noise, it never ends. For introverts, this constant stimulation is exhausting. But even for everyone else, it's distracting from the voice that matters most, your own. Michael Harris writes that solitude isn't about isolation, it's about being with yourself fully, without the outside world pressing in. When I first read that, I didn't quite get it. But then I started taking solo walks without my phone. No podcasts, no music, just walking, just me. At first, it was uncomfortable. My brain wanted input. I kept reaching for my pocket like a reflex. But a few days in, something shifted. I started to notice things, birds I'd never heard before, how the morning light hit the sidewalk, even my own breathing. Then I noticed something else. My own thoughts became clearer. I didn't even realize how noisy my inner world had become until I let it quiet down. One morning, I remembered a childhood dream to write poetry again. That same day, I scribbled a short poem on a napkin during breakfast. It wasn't great, but it was mine, and it only showed up because I had created space. Solitude gives introverts their edge. It fuels creativity, self-connection, and insight. It reminds us that we don't need to perform, impress, or please to matter. So here's your try it moment. Spend just 10 minutes today in solitude. No phone, no music, no tasks. Just sit, or walk, or lie down. Let your mind wander. Then ask, what did my mind uncover in stillness? Maybe it's an idea. Maybe it's a truth. Maybe it's peace. Solitude is not about being away from the world. It's about coming home to yourself. And for us quiet ones, that home is full of power. If you've ever felt out of place in a loud world, this video was for you. Being quiet isn't a flaw, it's a strength. And these 10 books reminded us just how powerful that strength can be. We started with Quiet by Susan Cain Louds, the foundation of understanding introversion. It reminded us that even a soft voice matters deeply. Then Bittersweet helped us see that emotions like longing and nostalgia aren't weaknesses. They're part of our creative soul. With Introvert Power, we learned that needing space isn't selfish, it's essential. You deserve time to recharge. And Quiet Influence showed us how we can lead and inspire, not by shouting but by being prepared, thoughtful, and consistent. As the noise of the world grows louder, digital minimalism gave us permission to turn it all down, to unplug, to think clearly again. And the gifts of imperfection helped us realize that sharing even a little of our truth can connect us more deeply than faking confidence ever could. In Flow, we saw that getting lost in something we love, whether it's art, writing, music, or thinking, is not only fulfilling but necessary. And the highly sensitive person reminded us that being tuned into details, feelings, and energy is a rare gift, not a burden. Then came Essentialism, a book that asked, what truly matters? For introverts who often feel pulled in many directions, this was the reminder we needed to say no without guilt, so we can say yes to our purpose. Finally, Solitude brought it all together. It taught us that silence and alone time aren't signs of emptiness, but spaces where clarity, creativity, and deep thoughts are born. When you add them all up, these books form something far more powerful than advice. They form a toolkit. A way to thrive without pretending. A way to grow in your quiet. A way to stop apologizing for your nature and start owning it. So if you've ever whispered when the world shouted, paused when others rushed, felt deeply when others barely noticed, you're not broken. You're built differently and beautifully. And now, you've got the books to help you live fully, your way. We've just walked through 10 beautiful books that don't try to change who you are, but instead help you understand, accept, and grow in your quiet strength. If even one idea today made you feel seen or understood, tap like. It helps more quiet souls find this space, where silence is not judged, but celebrated. Leave a comment and tell me, which book felt like it was written just for you, or which one are you picking up first? Subscribe to Books Ahead for more simple, powerful book ideas that meet you where you are. No pressure, no noise, just honest support. Remember, your quiet is not a weakness. It's a superpower the world is just beginning to understand. Let it shine. You've got this.